Hello and welcome. My name is Dr. Wendy Ferrone, and I am a contributing educational consultant to PaTTAN's Multi-Tiered Systems of Support initiative. Today, we will be reviewing the empirical reading research, or science of reading, and a continuum of evidence-based early literacy practices for adoption and implementation within a tiered system of support. The mission of the Pennsylvania Training and Technical Assistance Network, or PaTTAN, is to support the efforts and initiatives of the Bureau of Special Education and to build the capacity of local educational agencies in serving students who receive special education services. Our goal for each child is to ensure individualized education program teams begin with the general education setting with the use of supplementary aids and services before considering a more restrictive environment. Pennsylvania's multi-tiered system of support is a standards-aligned, comprehensive school improvement framework for enhancing both academic and behavioral health outcomes for all students. In Pennsylvania, response to intervention refers to the rate and level associated with student performance and serves as an alternative to ability achievement discrepancy within the specific learning disability determination process. Pennsylvania's MTSS model represents an integrated system, meaning that cross-disciplinary teams use a problem-solving process to facilitate shared ownership for achieving academic and behavioral goals using a continuum of evidence-based practices and reliable and valid data sources. The academic side of MTSS, standards-aligned, high-quality core literacy, mathematics, and STEM instruction, is delivered within the context of culturally responsive practices, positive behavioral supports, and family engagement. There are key components that form the foundation of Pennsylvania's MTSS framework. If a well-articulated, well-designed tiered system is in place, you should realize efficient, effective, and sustainable outcomes. During today's Quick Pick, we will define evidence-based within the context of the empirical reading research, or what we call the science of reading. We'll showcase a continuum of evidence-based early literacy practices for adoption within tiered systems. And we'll review the International Dyslexia Association's Knowledge and Practice Standards for Teachers of Reading. I want to begin this quick pick by highlighting what some practitioners may still not know. We have accumulated converging biological and behavioral research in reading, and we refer to that body of evidence as the science of reading, which served as the impetus for tiered systems of support. This slide also presents a strong statement, which is that the science of reading is the only defensible foundation for helping practitioners design and deliver effective literacy instruction. Because the science of reading is considered settled science, what we have come to learn and understand about effective literacy instruction is essentially irrefutable. This map shows the sites that were instrumental in answering questions about language development as it manifests in reading, writing, speaking, and listening, and added to a body of research that has been in existence for more than 35 years. Scarborough, Lieberman, Pugh and Fletcher, Shaywitz, Motes, McCardle, and many others have made significant contributions to the field. Please visit the Children of the Code website for extensive information, supports, and resources that pertain to this research and body of work. Mark Seidenberg, one of the contributors to the Science of Reading, commented, "There is a profound disconnection between the science of reading and educational practice. What is required is changing the culture of education from one based on beliefs to one based on facts." 30 years of converging empirical reading research has constituted the following shifts in the field. First, we now have support for theoretical models of proficient reading development as foundational for reading instruction. We also now have neurobiological evidence on how children learn to read and why some children are at risk. And finally, it is widely recognized and accepted that literacy instruction should be delivered through multiple tiers of support and services from a child's early years through adulthood. Dr. David Kilpatrick, Associate Professor of Psychology at the State University of New York at Cortland, and nationally certified school psychologist, is an example of a research practitioner who has taken a renewed interest in dissecting and disseminating the science of reading. In his book entitled Essentials of Assessing, Preventing, and Overcoming Reading Difficulties, he commented, "We have ample research to show that by making changes in our instructional approaches, we can prevent many reading difficulties, as well as substantially accelerating the reading growth of most students with reading difficulties. If an instructional methodology can make such a difference, we should carefully consider how we presently teach reading." Take a moment to review this graphic. Notice the title, the strands, the categories. Think about what this has to do with reading acquisition. What you may notice is that many single strands are twisted or braided together and form a thick rope labeled skilled reading. The two main strands are labeled language comprehension and word recognition. This model was created by Hollis Scarborough in 2001 based upon 20 years of research. When recently asked if there was anything she would change about this depiction, she stated that nothing in the research has shown that reading is made up of anything different than what is depicted here, so nope, no changes. There are still two basic parts that lead to skill reading. These include language comprehension and word recognition. The goal is skilled reading, where all of these strands are bound together to create a strong connection between words on a page and understanding. The goal of all reading is to make meaning of what we have read. Notice that each step accomplished allows for the next step to be accomplished, all working toward being a strong, skilled reader. Comprehending text involves the interplay of a variety of skills which work together with various intensity depending on the reader's task. To illustrate this point, here's a poem. Fog. The fog comes on little cat feet. It sits looking over harbor and city on silent haunches, and then moves on. By Carl Sandburg. Simple to read, right? Well, maybe not. Let's break this down into what has occurred in order to understand this simple poem. So in order to read this poem with relative ease and accuracy, an individual will need accurate and automatic phonological awareness, decoding, and sight word recognition skills. Each of these skills in and of themselves are complex and have to be taught explicitly by teachers during the early elementary grades. The majority of young children who fail to become proficient readers typically struggle with development of these skills, which are found in Scarborough's bottom strand. Language comprehension skills found in the top strand of the rope are equally necessary to learn to read and understanding of this poem, and include skills such as background knowledge, vocabulary, and verbal reasoning ability. Scarborough's top and bottom strands can be further simplified through Gough and Tunmer's simple view of reading, whereby reading comprehension is the result or outcome of decoding and expressive and receptive vocabulary. Using this model, it is sometimes easier to determine where a given student's deficiencies exist. Does the student have an issue with decoding or language comprehension? Instruction and intervention can then be matched to the deficiency. Reading comprehension will be negatively impacted until both domains are sufficiently developed. Seidenberg and McClellan's four-part processing model helps us to understand where and why reading problems might develop, and why reading instruction must be integrated and comprehensive in nature. When it is, teachers are using instruction and intervention to facilitate the development of each processing system to work synergistically with the others toward proficient reading. Fluency is our best indicator of whether these systems are each sufficiently developed and are working in concert. Finally, Ehri's model depicts how decoding and comprehension contribute to reading skill development, or yield cumulative impact over time. The better children can read at the beginning levels, the more they progress at the consolidated alphabetic stage. So, for example, they do not have to be taught every word anymore because they can decode on their own. The rich get richer, so to speak. Many practitioners find it easy to apply these phases within the context of instruction and what to emphasize when and with whom. The theoretical models that we have just reviewed briefly each offer insight into a given student's reading status and future trajectory. They facilitate timely analysis and instructional matching, as well as implications for targeted intervention. Take a moment to consolidate this information using this crosswalk. Now that we have reviewed theoretical models, let's turn to practices that have emanated from these theories that have proven most effective. If you've been in the field of education for any length of time, you know that one of the main tenets of a multi-tiered system of support is the adoption and implementation of academic and behavioral practices that have empirical backing. Hence terms like research-based and scientifically based that have been widely used for years, and, most recently, evidence-based. Do you think these are the same, or are they different? We thought you might find it helpful to take a moment to clarify these terms. Let's begin with the term research-based or based in research. Does this mean that someone has conducted research on a given practice that you are using, or that you can be super confident that it works? Unfortunately not. The term research-based has lost its value because of marketing efforts that have been aimed at getting the consumer to feel confident that the practice indeed works. However, this may not always be the case. When the term research-based is used appropriately and with integrity, it means that the practice you are adopting was informed by existing research findings, but is yet to be validated itself. With respect to scientifically based, this term was referenced heavily within the No Child Left Behind legislation in order to promote and bridge empirical research with boots-on-the-ground practices. Historically, school-based practitioners have not been routinely exposed to the experimental, peer-reviewed studies related to their field of discipline. Notwithstanding the science of reading, or what we call the empirical reading research. Given the crisis that the United States had and still has with early reading development and prevention of early reading failure, NCLB's intent was to put 30 years of converging biological and behavioral research at our feet to force its consumption by and adoption within the field of education at large. Most recently, under the Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA, the term evidence-based practices, or EBPs, has replaced the term scientifically based. The overarching goal is to continue to improve outcomes for students by turning toward the peer-reviewed literature and those practices that have the greatest likelihood of producing desired change in a timely manner. So given our context today, if practitioners are implementing evidence-based early reading practices or methodologies matched to students' needs and with fidelity in a tiered system, Then they are more likely to realize the impact and results associated with a given evidence-based practice. Before we move forward, let's take a moment to review additional policy guidance and characteristics associated with EBPs. I should also note that the Institute of Educational Sciences, or IES, has practice guides that continue to serve as a free resource for practitioners who are looking for specific EBPs related to their discipline. Should you be interested to learn more about EBPs, these are some additional resources that we have gathered for you. Let's walk through where you might begin if you wanted to find evidence-based resources. I'll just pause for a moment here while you review this list. I would like to point out that Letters is the only source of professional development that relies exclusively on the empirical reading research to inform their training content and knowledge. Voyager-Sopris Learning is an entity that endorses the products and methodologies that have been scientifically validated. The combination of these two options raises the potential for building sound knowledge and practice while having access to supportive tools that help put the knowledge into practice. Over the course of the next few slides, I will be showing you specific examples of evidence-based practices that span the building blocks of reading. We will begin with phonological awareness. We know that this skill is foundational and necessary to be able to read and write. Here are some recommended options to help students acquire this skill in an efficient and effective manner. Similarly, these are options for helping students acquire phonics skills from beginning to advanced. Some of these options rely upon principles of direct, explicit instruction, and others rely more heavily upon the use of multi-sensory structured language methodologies. These are examples of evidence-based fluency strategies. Many practitioners are concerned about helping students build a strong language foundation. I would like to call your attention to RAVO. It was developed by Marianne Wolf and has been in evolution for over 2 decades. RAVO is often used with elementary students and can be used during core or supplemental reading intervention. RAVO accelerates learning, prevents and closes reading gaps, promotes language development and deep comprehension, and embeds informal and formal measures to assess student progress. For more information on RAVO, you can visit the Voyager-Sopris Learning website. After you have expanded your continuum of evidence-based reading practices, it is critical that practitioners form teams and refine their implementation efforts over time as they plan, study, act, and do. They enter into this recursive problem-solving process together. The Institute for Educational Sciences has put together an 8-step process to assist you with fidelity of implementation. Remember, evidence-based practices have already been established as effective. The key is the match to student needs and refining other factors associated with sound implementation. In addition to the IES steps that you may follow, there is an evidence-based intervention network called EBIN. This network was developed to provide guidance in the selection and implementation of EBPs into the classroom setting. The EBIN has an extensive resource base, including intervention briefs and video-based instruction. Many practitioners subscribe to journals that may or may not be peer-reviewed. This list is comprised of those journals that are peer-reviewed and contain information that is highly reliable and valid. Our last topic is devoted to professional learning and preparation. No matter what the theoretical or evidence base is for reading, the most important factor is the practitioner. We wanted to show you the International Dyslexia Association's knowledge and practice standards for reading, should you want to seek additional professional learning opportunities that are aligned with these standards. The standards are categorized in the following ways. Letters, Language Essentials for Teachers of Reading and Spelling, is a professional development program that is offered widely by certified trainers in Pennsylvania and covers the majority of these standards, in addition to opportunities that are afforded through IDA, local, state, and national training. We are going to end today's quick pick by recognizing the work of Dr. John Hattie. He's the director of the Melbourne Education Research Institute at the University of Melbourne, Australia. Dr. Hattie has conducted and produced a synthesis of the most effective practices that we can use in our field to help improve outcomes for students. We have included this 15-minute clip for you to further extend your professional learning. We highly recommend that you use the information to enhance your instructional practices. Please visit PaTTAN's MTSS and literacy initiatives under the tab of Educational Initiatives shown above to access additional professional learning, resources, tools, and information. Thank you for joining me today.